And now, TSPN is proud to present Art and Culture with Kathleen Ball on TSPN.
Hey everyone, this is Art and Culture with Kathleen Ball. We're glad to see everybody tonight. I have a special guest with me this evening, Sharon Strong, who I've known for many, many years, and is a fellow artist in Calaveras County. And she's going to be talking about masks today. So we're going to be going into a variety of processes. We're going to talk about inspiration. We're going to talk about travels. We're going to talk about all sorts of stuff tonight. So we have a very interesting show for you tonight. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Sharon Strong and let her tell you herself a little bit about her background, and then we're going to go into the masks. So go ahead, Sharon. You want to talk a little bit about what you do?
Well, I'm an artist and a psychologist, and actually I've been an artist my whole life, and I think a psychologist my whole life too. You know, all of us have grown up in dysfunctional families, and I was really paying attention to mine as I was growing up. And so moving into the field of psychology was a really natural thing. And my evolution as an artist has been really an interesting journey, because I started out as an art major, shifted to psychology at, about 10 years into the journey to complete an education while marrying, divorcing, remarrying, raising children, that kind of thing. And I was really drawn to figurative painting and love life drawing. In fact, you and I met at the life drawing group that met at your house.
Yes, exactly.
And I was working actually at the Academy of Art in San Francisco. This has been probably 15, 16 years ago, on a series of autobiographical paintings, and one of them was a painting of a masked woman dancing at larger than life, and she's an angry masked woman dancing. And then when I completed the painting, I thought, this painting isn't taking enough risks. You know, it needs to go further. I need to push the envelope. So I thought, I'll make a mask of rage. Then I'll learn from the mask and I'll move back into the painting. I was living in Berkeley at the time and went to the Berkeley Public Library when, the basement was down below, and searched through the DVD, or actually videos at that time, to learn how to make a mask. And the method I learned used plaster gauze formed over the face.
Right, so this is an age-old process, folks. This is something that people have been doing ever since there's been broken arms. This is actually the same stuff that they used to use. Now they're using something different, but this is what they used to use for broken arms and broken legs. And it comes in strips, and this is the process that, this is the first process that you are taught when you make a mask. So, but you do something, do a complete takeoff. You do a different process.
Yes.
Because we were talking about this earlier.
Yes.
It's like, we start with the same thing.
Yes.
My husband and myself, we
did
a couple
that's
of masks.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we did a couple of these the other night. My husband and I did each other. And then pressing clay into the masks. So these have to be fired. However, your process is a completely different process, and this is what I'd like you to talk to folks about, because your process doesn't require a kiln, which are going to be magic words to those folks at home who don't have kilns, and most of us, of course, don't. So I'd like you to go ahead and talk about the type of media that you're using that doesn't require a kiln.
Okay. I use two different kinds of clay. Both are air dried and they're non-toxic. And the one I brought this evening is called paper clay. It's imported from Japan.
Right.
And the primary ingredient is volcanic ash. And
now, how could someone, if someone at home wanted to get this, I'm going to put the wrapper up. I don't know if you can see that. But this is a really nice clay. It feels great. You know, it just feels really good in your hands to work with. It's comparable to water-based clay, actually, in the textural quality and the smoothness. It actually feels very close. It's very similar. So how could you tell our friends at home what is the process for purchasing this? Can you get this online?
You can get it online. NASCO Art Supplies has it.
NASCO,
and
yes.
And you can also get it in any good art supply store,
Okay.
as well as the plaster gauze that you and I are both using.
So like Utrecht or NASCO, which is NASCO, you can, and www.nasco,
Yes.
or www.utrecht, which is UTRECHT. The store is in Sacramento. But you can go online. These are really easy to just Google these and go online and you can get this clay. So, Okay, great. That's great. It makes it a lot easier for folks. So.
And you and I both sculpt the clay mask over the base of the plaster gauze life mask.
Yeah.
I use, as we're talking about, a water-based air-dried clay, and actually I can demonstrate.
Good, that would be great.
All right.
That's what we'd like to see.
How is that?
So you're starting with a board, and this board is just a piece of wood? Or?
Actually, when I teach a mask making class, it isn't necessary to use the board. My students will just cover their plaster gauze life mask with the aluminum foil. The reason for doing that is so when the clay dries, it doesn't adhere to the life mask, and you can remove it, and then you've got a wonderful art mask. And I'm just going to show you, let me see, does it help to hold it up? Yes. Okay, let's see if I can do this holding on to it. Actually, Kathleen,
would you like me to hold it for you? How about I'll hold it for you, and then we can actually...
and let's see if I can do this upside down and backwards.
Okay.
Move the brushes.
Move the brushes. Okay. Got it. Is
a
little better for you? In fact, how about if I move this? No? Good.
All right.
Very good.
So when I'm doing a mask, I love noses, and so I often like to start with the nose. And with this clay, it's so wonderful because it's very forgiving. You use your fingers are your best tools, and you just shape the shape of a nose. And it's wonderful to have someone in the same room or the same class or the same workshop with you, because you just look across the work table, and there's your model.
So you have as many examples that are, attendees.
And so I like to start with the shaft of the nose, and then think in terms of shapes. These half moons for the nostrils. I'm not really quite sure what I'm doing here. The nostrils may end up being uneven, but that's okay. It'll probably make it more interesting.
We were talking about asymmetry earlier. We were talking about things not being perfect, because oftentimes in art, this is the fun of art, is that you don't have to necessarily adhere to straight lines and perfect circles and perfect noses and.
Oh, exactly. And, as you and I both know, there are no mistakes.
Right.
And often what people think of as a mistake is, the most exciting part of the art.
Well, I like to call them happy accidents, because then it takes you off in a whole different direction that you don't necessarily expect. But it's a journey that you might learn something new.
Exactly.
That you didn't know before.
So let's see how I can do with this mouth sort of upside down and backward. That's not bad. Okay. And again, what I found is asymmetry brings the personality of the mask to life. That isn't, good, it's getting there. Lower lip. Can you see a face?
Yeah, you can actually start to see something happening here.
Okay, lower lip. There we go. Play with expression. Now, there are so many different ways of completing this, and I'm going to very quickly just fill in the face. Again, thinking in terms of shape and not being careful at all.
Right, right. So she's placing large shapes that she knows, of course, from experience, are going to fit into a space like the cheeks and the nose and different things like that. So she's placing these larger pieces of clay onto the spaces to basically fill in, is what you're doing at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And then after the break, we'll both be sharing some of our masks, and you can see just the variations are infinite. And even all my masks have as a base my own live mask, and it's possible I think of it as my embedded signature, and it's possible to create, even though I'm obviously a woman, male, female, animal.
Okay, so we've gotten this far so far, and I want to just quickly focus in on the masks that are finished, because these are so fascinating. And in our next segment after our break, we're going to talk about that a little bit, talk about background, and these masks are so fascinating. So we're going to focus in on these masks here that we have. Sharon's brought in 3 beautiful masks, and we're going to talk about the story behind these.
Yes.
And which is quite a story, involving a tremendous amount of travel, and just some wonderful, wonderful experiences went into these, and some actual pieces from places that she's traveled that have been incorporated into these masks. So we'll see you in just a few moments, and when we come back, we'll talk about the masks a little bit more.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.
Welcome back to the Acorn and Feather Sports Report. Let's toss it over to Rich Hoffman for some breaking news.
Thank you, Christina. Jackson Rancheria is bringing back their Pick the Winners Challenge for the 2013 pro football season. Dreamcatchers Club members will have their chance to compete for their share of $400,000, plus a chance to win $1 million.
Rich, that sounds like a hit.
That's right, Christina. It's time to score Rancheria style.
Got you dreaming, Jackson.
Party Lake Recreation Area welcomes the 7th annual Hot Rod Heaven Car Show, Saturday, September 21st. The show is open to all years. The event hours are 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. This very popular event will benefit Tri-County Wildlife Care. Tri-County Wildlife will have... And now back to Art and Culture with Kathleen Ball on TSPN.
Hello everybody, we're back. So we're going to continue with this mask, but in the meantime I want to, I'd like to talk about these masks here, Sharon, one at a time, and just go for it.
All right.
They're just so fascinating, the process.
All right. I'd like to talk about these in a particular sequence, because these are my personal masks. I create masks just for myself that enable me to explore, powerful, life-changing experiences. And 2 come from travels over the last 2 years. This one in particular, I'd like to start with, actually. And the inspiration for this one was a forest fire, and this one right here. And let me see if I can just lift it up so you can get a greater sense of...
Oh, there we go.
There.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
This is just absolutely gorgeous.
There.
And this does actually give you the feeling that it has been in a fire. It almost has like the heart and soul of a tree that has been burned or singed and damaged. I mean, you really get that feeling with the melted metals and the dark wood. It's amazing how that comes through.
I'm so glad to hear that, and especially from you, because that's the intention. And I don't know how many of you remember the Fresero fire in Calaveras County from almost exactly 2 years ago.
Right.
And we live on 40 acres, and all 40 acres of our land burned, and burned just in 24 hours, in 12 hours, it was gone. And we were so grateful for the men and women who fought the fire because they saved our houses, my studio.
Right.
And it just seemed to be so relevant in the aftermath of the rim fire. And there's something so absolute about a forest fire. The land is forever changed. And I knew that, actually, I knew after the fire had just singed everything, it looked like a moonscape on our land, that when the rains came, you know, the spring would bring the greenery, and you know, nature would restore. And I created this before the spring came. And these are from the fire. They're burned branches. This burned aluminum with you know, charcoal, burnt glass. A burnt screw came from actually a camper shell that was on the property that melted. And this became a very significant part of this piece, and very much for me a yin and yang design, symbolic of the birth, life, death, rebirth cycle.
Right.
And this side of the face is the promise of spring.
Yeah, exactly, because you see that, you know, that you get that, I pick up on that essence of life it's impossible to keep it down, because no matter what happens, things are renewed.
Yes.
They're always renewed. It's just that cycle of death and into the ground, and here we are again.
Yes.
You know, so it's really, really a beautiful piece.
Thank
So
you.
The second one in the process was?
The second one I'd like to share is Green Tara. And she was inspired by a trip to the Himalaya. Kathleen, you and I have been talking about you know, really feeling drawn to particular places in the world. And I was drawn to the Himalaya for a number of years. And actually it was about maybe 2-3 months after the fire that I went to the Himalaya, flew into Kathmandu. I did a solo trek following the Himalaya mountain range up to 17,000 feet. And what I really wanted was to draw close to those mountains and to experience Mount Everest. The Nepali people call Mount Everest Chomolungma, and that's the name that I use when I think about that mountain.
And what does that translate into English?
It really speaks to a female aspect.
It's a feminine aspect.
Yes,
That's very
yes, and I think
interesting.
it speaks to the mother. And actually, I looked for a translation and didn't find one that was definitive, but that was my sense of it. And
oftentimes, I find that's the case. You know, in Asian dialects, and also in Egyptian, we were talking about too, and many of the Middle Eastern languages, is they don't directly translate, so you have to sort of, you know, come up with the best translation. You know, it's more a feeling thing, you know. So
when I returned from that trek, Green Tara is the goddess of compassion in Tibetan Buddhism, and she is comparable to Kuan Yin, and the elements here, the yarn of her hair comes from Nepal, actually. Her earrings came from a gift from a Buddhist friend who had gone to India, and they are covered with gold leaf. And what I really wanted to capture was that sense of the depth of compassion of this goddess, and some of the quality of my experience in being in the Himalaya, where the spirituality of the people is alive in each village we trekked through, and it's a part of their daily lives.
Yes.
It isn't something they do on Sunday morning.
Right, it's something that's incorporated into every aspect of their being, at every motion, everything that they do, and this is typical in many of the cultures that I experienced over in the Middle East as well. Of course, we have a lot of we have things are right wing everywhere, but the essence of the belief systems are experienced on a minute to minute basis. With every bite you eat, with every step you take, with every breath that you breathe, it's incorporated, and I think that you really see that and you get that essence in the work. So we have the final mask is very interesting. I'm just drawn to the horn.
Oh, it was so special to find this broken horn. I was in Peru last November, and again, drawn to the Andes Mountains, and on a trek following the sacred Inca Trail for 7 days with a group of 7 amazing friends. And it was an incredible journey. Again, I think our highest elevation was 16,000 feet. And what was so beautiful about this journey was the connection to Pachamama, the Earth Mother, and Mother Earth, and also to the Apu, the spirit of the mountains.
Right.
And the first pass that we crested was Salcantay, and that was the 16,000-foot crest, and trekked down into this incredibly beautiful valley. And I've never had such a sense of the presence of the Mother and being held, in that energy. And on this, and I had not made masks for several months. Actually,
Really?
I
That's very
think Tara was probably the last one. And I began to find objects that spoke to me, and the first one was this broken horn. And I was thinking a lot about the state of the world and how the patriarchal systems are breaking down. And when I found that broken horn, it reminded me of the broken patriarchal system. And I thought, okay, I began to picture Pachamama and the horn as part of her headdress, if you will. And she is wearing the traditional head covering of the shaman of the Andes, specifically the Caro people. And what else is here that I can...
I recognize not the specific weave, because every single tribe has their own designs, even though they're very similar in overall, appearance. Of course, the materials and things that they use are very similar. But the designs themselves, the symbols, the specific symbols, individual symbols involved, are per tribe. So they represent the tribal people in an area, and so I see that in this. I've never seen, a headdress that looks exactly like this.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and you won't. If you go to South America, you won't, unless you go to this specific place.
Yes.
And then, there'll be some variation, depending on who's making the hat, who's making the headdress itself. So. Yeah. So these are really, really exciting. And, and this is something that happens in art. You're eventually at some point, I think that every artist I've ever known at some point, reaches that point where you can't get all the information that you need in your local area. And every artist I've ever known has ended up venturing out, to places unknown, and oftentimes by themselves, which, just soaking in the information and bringing in the energy from these sacred places. And with the world and the turmoil that we are in right now, that the artists are, well, when we come back, we're going to go into some more of this wonderful conversation with Sharon Strong. So we will see you in just a few moments. But we're going to talk a little bit more about inspiration. And we're going to do maybe a little bit more work on this. It looks like a nail to me, but I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, so thank you, folks. We'll see you in just a few moments.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN. And now back to Art and Culture with Kathleen Ball on TSPN.
Well, we're back, everybody. Good to be back, and we just were having this wonderful off-the-air conversation. It is so nice to have another artist that, on the show. It's just absolutely fabulous. I'm enjoying this so much. And so we were talking about, the aspect of art that, you get to the point where you're not sure if you're creating the art or it's creating you.
Yes.
Because there's such a reciprocal thing going on, and it seems to be alive and moving. And so, what is your experience with that particular concept?
I would like to actually go back to the first mask that I ever made, because I was following just a model, the plaster gauze life mask,
right. So
and did a mask of my own face.
Thing, right.
And then when I started creating this mask of rage, I was alone in my studio in Berkeley, and I began. At that point, I was using paper mache, and I began to sculpt this face of rage out of paper mache, and I could feel the rage, welling up inside. I found a mirror and broke the mirror and shoved in teeth.
I saw that.
You've seen that one.
As a matter of fact, I know exactly which one you're talking about. Yeah, you had that, I believe, at the gallery. Was that at the gallery at some point? Or maybe it was at your
probably at
studio.
At the house, And then this stiletto knife for a tongue, and I began to feel my heart pounding so fast. And I thought, can I tell this smudged truth?
Yeah, right.
Can I be this transparent? And it felt like I was really breaking some kind of taboo. Well, I realize now that I was in ritual space, and since then I've been studying, collecting, been inspired by the masks of indigenous people, particularly, throughout human history and around the world. And it was so powerful that I hadn't painted two-dimensionally for, I don't know, a dozen years or more.
Wow.
And just started again at this point working on another series that I'm excited about. Maybe another time we can talk about that. And I've found as you're talking, it's as if the art is creating, an aspect of yourself and drawing it forth, and I experienced that as well.
It pulls out things for you to see that may not be comfortable.
Definitely,
it's an aspect of it, and but you think of it, in terms of a mask. You think, well, this is almost sort of a medium between us and the viewer, because it's there and it's safe, for the viewer, so they're not experiencing the rage, but they're experiencing the essence of it. And the important thing is that it's coming out.
Right.
That it's coming out of us as we're creating the piece. It's going into the piece. And this happens with anything, I think, with anything that we're creating, because there's an aspect of the self.
Yes.
I don't care, there was a period of art, and I know you know what I'm talking about, where, everyone decided that they weren't, this was just very objective art, right? And you didn't put yourself in it, and it was very scientific and all this stuff. But I don't buy it.
No,
I
I
never
don't
did buy it, because there's always an aspect of yourself that is embedded, literally embedded. And we were talking a little bit about, cells and the intelligence and what's
Yes.
transferred in terms of energy, and why are we drawn to these sacred places? Well, because of the energy.
Exactly.
It's because of the energy, and it triggers something in us. It triggers a memory. It triggers something. We don't know what that triggers, but it does trigger. It triggers something that's almost tangible, that we can put in and pour into something like this. So, this is what I'm hearing you say too.
Oh, yes.
And this is so exciting, because on the air to be able to discuss this, because, it's not often that I have that luxury to be able to, to discuss these kinds of things at this level with another artist.
For me as well. And in my own work and in the workshops I share with adults and children as well,
Right.
what I see, and this is
And you have a workshop coming up.
Yeah, actually, it's in January. I think
Okay.
it's the maybe second week in January. What happens, and I've shared this with hundreds of people now, is it starts with one's own face.
That's right.
With one's own face, unadorned, and then in the work, as each artist begins to create the art mask,
Right.
what is inside comes forth.
Exactly.
What wants to be born comes forth. Literally and symbolically, each person is facing what wants to emerge. And it's
Exactly.
so powerful. And I've seen now hundreds of original art masks, and each one is so exquisitely beautiful and so authentic.
Right. And completely original. And this is the beauty, this is one of the wonderful things about art and about creating masks and not duplication. You can go into any big store and you can buy art off the wall and, whatever. You can pay whatever for duplications and prints and whatnot. And not to say that prints aren't good, because I do believe in the value of prints. However, there is something in the original creation of individual art that is not replicated. And because you cannot replicate the original energy from that piece.
Exactly.
It doesn't happen.
Yes, exactly.
Even with the ascending souls and things that I do replicate. Each one of them is molded, and I press glass into them, or I press some stone or something.
And look at your beautiful hands. I mean, and that pressing into, that's the human gesture.
Exactly.
No one does that like you do.
Right, exactly. And you're leaving, fingerprints, and this is something, that I find so exciting when, we're going to these sacred sites, because oftentimes, you get to see, of course, I'm drawn to archaeology sites, and you get to see a beautiful little bowl that's 5,000 years old, and there'll be a thumbprint in this, and it's just so amazing when you have that experience. It's just absolutely amazing. You see, in Egypt this happened, and I saw some busts of Nefertiti and whatnot, and there was actually a thumbprint from the sculptor, and it just took my breath away. Just absolutely took my breath away. So. Back to the masks itself. So you're using the paper clay, and I wanted to talk a little bit about, the painting and what types of paints. I brought in a few examples of just some little
we use
things
similar materials
that you might use. So if you might want to talk about some of this stuff. I always use water-based, non-toxic. And I think that's really important. You don't want to become toxic with the things you use. So you may want to talk about, acrylic paints or.
Actually, I use acrylic paint out of the tube. I love the texture, and acrylic paint is amazingly versatile because it's possible to do washes and glazes. Opaque paint that again has a layer built up. It's as if the paint has a language of its own.
It does.
And you were talking about the art also having a life of its own. And there's that point in the sculpting and in the painting
Yes.
where this being begins to emerge.
Yes.
And I'm not the sculptor.
Right.
You know, I'm just following the
Yes.
energy, following the muse. And the same thing happens with the painting.
So the paint, especially when it comes out of a tube, and this is one of the reasons I do like these tubes, is because it's almost like a river flowing.
Oh, that's
It's,
nice.
You know, I mean, it is. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, you relate it to the earth, and you relate it to, you know, the things that are going on in the earth. You know, and I like to work with dirt, and I like to work with oxidation.
yes,
and,
yes.
You know, I love to work with rocks and little bits and things that I find. You know, and in fact, I used to save you snake skins and things.
Did you?
Yes,
yes, I do remember.
The lizard
Yeah.
shed, you know, in fact I had
Yeah.
two, but they just disintegrated, but not too long ago. But, you know, and little things like that, and feathers, and, you know, we did bring some feathers in as some examples too. And then, you know, sometimes I even like to go in with like gold leaf.
Well, you have an
You know,
example of that here.
right.
And it's beautiful.
And it's a nice contrast with the natural things. There's something about that contrast that is drawn. Of course, I've always, you know, drawn by contrast. So these are some of the things that you know, that people at home, you know, can come up with. Sticks and just things you find. In fact, I used to keep a box for my students. That had just little things I'd find on the street or wherever I was. You know, I collect rusty stuff, I collect whatever.
Yes.
And it went into this box. If a chair broke, the pieces went into the box. You know, if whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But these kind of things, you know, beads and buttons and whatever, but these kind of things can be incorporated into your masks for those of you who are interested in making one of these. And also, we're going to be talking a little bit more at in a few minutes at the end of the show about you have a center.
Yes.
That I really am excited about. And so we're going to talk about your upcoming workshop, and we're going to talk about your center that is located in San Andreas.
That's right.
And you've had this building for really you've sort of moved back into this building. So it's a fascinating space. I love that space, by the way. I always loved that space. So when we come back, we're going to talk about those things, and Sharon's going to, talk about the workshop and how you can get a hold of her. So we'll see you back in just a few moments, and go get more into how you can actually reach her and connect with some of these processes. Thank you.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN. And now back to Art and Culture with Kathleen Ball on TSPN.
Alrighty. Hi, folks. We're back. We have about 10, 12 more minutes of lovely Sharon Strong, and we were just talking about the center.
Yes.
And we're talking about where it's located, and the fact that I think that was one of our first connections was there.
That's
As a matter
right.
of fact, I think
Yeah.
that was probably, I wandered into this space that just looked so intriguing. And you were there with George, I believe.
Yes, my husband,
Your
who is
husband?
a painter.
And I was just drawn to this space, and I didn't even know that you were there. I didn't even know that an artist, but I felt that an artist was there.
That's right.
Right, and I had just moved to Mountain Ranch,
Yeah.
and so this was in 2005 or something,
Yeah.
I think. And so I meandered in there, and we connected, and then you came and spoke at the class for
That's
Columbia.
right.
So-
And you were working on an installation for Columbia College that was
Right.
absolutely amazing. And we talked about using the gallery space at the center for an
Yes.
installation, and we haven't done that
No,
yet.
we haven't yet. No,
But we
haven't.
need to.
You have to see the new piece that I'm working on.
I'd
so
like
we'll,
to.
We'll have to. Maybe
Yeah.
we can work out something.
Okay.
But anyway, so the center is in San Andreas, and we have a number of things coming up.
Yes. just briefly, the Center for Creativity and Community was a dream that I've had for years and years, wanting to have a place literally at the center of a community where people could come and make art and simply be creative through music, art, storytelling, and I found, particularly with the mask workshops, when people come together and are creative together, community forms.
That's right.
And there is, I feel and experience such a hunger amongst people today, people in the city and people here in our rural area,
Right.
for relationship,
Yeah.
that's deep and authentic and playful.
Right.
And so actually I was doing an online interview with a friend in Berkeley, and probably 2 years ago, and she said, "So Sharon," at the end of the interview, "what is your dream?" And I said, this will never, I don't see how this could ever happen, but my dream is to have a center, in our county, in Calaveras County, where people can come and be creative and make
there's energy
community.
in that, making that statement.
Well, what was really amazing is my mother, who lives in Amador County, Floyd Goulart, was listening. And she called me the next morning, and it always makes me feel tearful, and said, "Sharon, I want you to have your dream." And she gifted the property to me on 23 West St. Charles on Highway 49 in the
that's
middle of San Andreas.
23 West St. Charles, right smack in the middle of San Andreas.
Right, next to
And-
the only blinking light in town.
Exactly. And as you're coming into San Andreas, heading east, it's on your right-hand side.
Yes.
And you can't miss it because it's a huge barn space. There's a
Yeah.
little house on the right-hand side.
Yes.
There's an office space. And then directly behind it, there's this big parking lot. And you go into the parking lot, and then there's this big, huge barn. And it's right there, and you can't
Yes.
miss it.
Thank you. And what's so special about it, speaking of, the energy in a place, is, both the barn and the house are over 100 years old. And we're always finding pottery shards, when the earth gets dug up we have a garden, a community garden. There's a lot of things going on there. But what I wanted to share particularly, actually, I think I will share this in reverse order, is our first ever Arts Bash fundraiser. It's going to be at the wonderful Thorn Mansion, also on Highway 49 in San Andreas, just across the street from us and down a ways. The Art Bash is Saturday, October 12th from noon to 5. And as you can see from the poster, Blame Sally is performing. We're having a delicious, very gourmet barbecue lunch, and there will be arts activities and just all kinds of things going on.
Right.
So I invite you to come. To order tickets or get more information, you can call our number 498-2085. Tickets are $35 a piece, and it goes to support our arts and music, our community garden, and the programs that are developing at the Center
Right.
for Creativity and
So that number,
Community.
once again, was 498?
Yes, 2085.
2085. So that's area code 209-498-2085.
Yes.
Okay, so if anyone's interested, that's the contact number. Or, of course, you can also contact me, and I can get a hold and give you the phone number. And at the end of the show, we'll have that contact information for myself as well. And I can direct you to the correct phone number to get a
Yes.
hold of Sharon and get a hold of, so you can, sounds like it's going to be great.
Oh, it's
I'm
going to be so much. Good, good.
My husband and I will be going,
I'm glad
definitely.
you'll both
So
be there.
it sounds like fun. Because this is so important, it's so vital. I just had someone yesterday. This is an example. This is a living example. I just had someone, a very close friend of mine who I've known for years. We raised our children together here in Amador County. And I've known this woman for I don't even know, since our children, our daughters were 5, and they're now 28, 27, so it's been 22 years. And she said to me, I've always wanted to do art. I've always wanted to do. She said, but I've always been so busy making a living
Yes.
and paying bills and this and that, you know, and raising children. She had several children. And, you know, I said to her, you know, you can do that. You can do that. Anybody, you really can. Because oftentimes, you know, you can work out things. There's always a way to work something out. And I've had, you know, several private students that have come to me and said, well, I don't know how I'm going to be able to afford this. I said, well, we'll work something out.
Yes.
You know, let's work something out. Because it's such a vital experience. It's something that was integrated into everyday life
Yes.
for indigenous cultures
Yes.
from the very beginning of our existence on this planet. So, you know, we made our own pots and we made our own bowls and we made our own homes and we built everything with our hands, our hands. So, you know, we go to, you know, wherever we go to buy plates, and we do this to buy this, and we do this to buy that, because it's quicker and easier, where we, you know, we really have moved away from that personal experience with the things that we need. And I think that we are moving back to that.
Yes.
People are craving it.
Yes.
You know, they want to have these original art pieces in their home. They want to have the experience of working with other people in a community situation where they're creating together, because there is a creative energy. And I noticed this in my classes when I was teaching at the college, or in any class that I taught, that, you know, after a few months, even a month maybe, or a couple of weeks, the class is teaching itself.
Yes.
There's a creative energy.
Yes.
I'm not kidding, and it's flowing.
Yeah.
And I just interject a few things here and there to keep the thing going, you know, to keep it going. But anyway, so this is a vital experience, and I would, you know, highly suggest anybody who's always had that little thing inside that said, you know, I can't afford it, or I can't do this, or whatever. Do it for yourself. You know, it's the cost of a couple of cups of coffee, you know, that you would normally get for yourself in the morning. Make a decision that you'd rather do. Make something that you can bring into your home.
Yeah.
You know, make a decision that you want to, you know, create something for yourself.
Oh, absolutely. And at the center, everyone is welcome, regardless
Yeah,
of ability
right.
to pay. And we have classes coming up in drawing and
Yeah.
painting. There's a wonderful ceramic studio class that's starting. I've
Right.
just started a teen art and self-discovery, a new session that's 8 weeks, and there's still
Right.
space for teenagers to come. It's on Thursdays from 4 to 5:30.
Right.
So there's just so much happening.
So by coming, you know, to this event on October 12th,
Yes.
you know, you could find out about all these
Yes.
things. This would be a great venue to just discover and explore and find out what you have to offer there.
Yeah, definitely.
So, you know, and there's another opportunity. We have another opportunity as well.
Yes.
We have this opportunity, which is the Open Studio Tours in Calaveras County, and it's the last weekend of September. It's 28th and 29th of September from 10 to 5. And you can purchase your tickets by passport. They're $10 each. And you can get a hold of the Arts Council, and their number is 754-1774. And I believe Mary Jane is still, she's running things over there.
Yes.
I was over there not too long ago. So, and their address is 22 Main Street in Calaveras. So this is where you would contact to get your tickets. But what this gives you is a passport to go to your Center of Creativity,
Yes.
which you're going to have artists on display.
Actually, we're going to have 7 artists whose work are on display. Myself, my husband, George Durkee, he and I own the art gallery in Murphys,
Right.
California. Donovan Agassi, Deanna Furtney, Stephen Hall, a wonderful ceramicist, Gibbs Satterley, and Connie Strawbridge will all have their art
Wonderful.
in the barn in the house.
Okay, everyone, this has been a wonderful evening. I've just so enjoyed this show tonight. This has been so fabulous. So we have all these wonderful opportunities coming up on October 12th. Please don't forget that that's happening. And then on the 28th and 29th of September, which is just a week away, just a little more than a week away.
Yeah.
And you can get your tickets at that number is 754-1774. So thank you very much. We've enjoyed having you so much. This has just been so fabulous. And again, we have our
Work of art in the making.
and we show the finished work here. So anyone who wants to create a mask, you can contact us for materials or contact the website. So thank you very much, and we had a wonderful evening. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you, Kathleen. It was wonderful.
Yes, absolutely fabulous. It was really, really wonderful.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.